A coward is always afraid. And when we are afraid, we become slaves. We bend. We lick our boots. Our ancestors were not cowardly. And if we are cowardly, our children will ask us questions. Imagine that in Burkina Faso we refuse to fight and we accept to submit, to live in slavery.
Hello, welcome back to my YouTube space. I am the Kenyan Beast, of course. We are doing it the African way, every day, every time. Now, in today's video, I'm going to talk about this message of Ibrahim Traoré to Black Americans and Afro-Caribbeans and all Africans at large. The message is only one: unity, unity, unity. That is the message that Ibrahim Traoré is talking about now. And it's a warning to puppet leaders, and it's a warning to these foreign leaders who want to divide us, who want to divide the African people, who want to divide the black people so that they could conquer. It's called a divide and conquer. And that's one thing that they are doing. It's one thing that black people are doing. It's one thing that these foreign countries are doing to divide the black people, to divide the unity of black people, to divide Africans so that they can remain at the seat of conquering, so that they can conquer. That's what they think of. Okay, I want you to watch this clip and then we'll come back again and talk about it.
We must unite. The only way to unite is to talk to each other, to understand each other, and to be able to establish the basis of this unity. Young people, let me tell you that to unite, there are three words, three big screws that we must ban from our behavior and our lives. I am talking about cowardice, treachery, and incompetence. We must ban these three words from our way of life. I am going to explain why. Cowardice covers many screws. A coward is always afraid. And when we are afraid, we become slaves. We bend. We lick our boots. Our ancestors were not cowardly. And if we are cowardly, our children will ask us questions. Imagine that in Burkina Faso we refuse to fight and we accept to submit, to live in slavery. Tomorrow our children will grow up and they will ask themselves questions. Have our parents been cowardly to leave us in slavery? Whether we are alive or dead, we will feel it. Cowardice is afraid, and the imperialists have understood that they are trying to scare the leaders so that they become cowards. Because when you are a coward, all the other screws can be born. We do everything so that we are afraid. They come to our palaces. They threaten us directly or with veiled threats. Of course, we respond as it is necessary. They try to make us understand. They take examples every time. They tell us, you know, Thomas Sankara tried to do this, but he is dead. President Haitian tried to do this, but he is dead. Gaddafi tried to do this, but he is dead. These are words that we take in a veiled way to scare us. And we often see some young people trying to take our path in a different way. We can hear them say, such and such person ruled like this, he is in his country. Such and such person ruled like this, he is in prison. All this to try to scare us so that we become cowards. But I think they didn't understand one thing. When we say country or death, we win. It's not just a sentence. It's not just a sentence. It all makes sense. We are not afraid and we will never be afraid.
Ils ont fait peur sûrement à beaucoup de chefs d'État africains.
They probably scared a lot of African heads of state. They probably scared a lot of African heads of state.
Lorsqu'on a l'occasion d'être dans certaines situations à
You see,
l'extérieur,
often when we express ourselves or when we have the opportunity to be in certain situations abroad,
prendre soin de notre jeunesse pour pouvoir amorcer notre
we often say something to call on African heads of state to wake up and take care of our youth so that we can start our real development. So that we can start our real development.
publiquement à nos propos.
We are often misunderstood. Some have publicly opposed us. Some have publicly opposed us because they feel indexed. But I can assure you, youth, that when we find ourselves in the corridors,
Ces mêmes chefs d'État nous disent vous êtes sur la bonne voie, c'est ce qu'il faut faire pour que l'Afrique.
these same heads of state tell us that we are on the right track and that this is what needs to be done so that Africa can rise again.
Nous leur posons des questions à savoir pourquoi vous ne
So we ask them questions like, why don't you do like us? Why don't you support us?
Certains nous disent qu'ils ne peuvent pas. Chers aînés,
Some tell us that they have the means, and some tell us that they can't.
Je souhaiterais dire que les peuples africains sont les peuples les plus pacifiques.
Dear elders, African heads of state, at the end of this podium, I would like to say that African peoples are the most peaceful. That African peoples are the most peaceful. When you recognize a wrong, you have to tell the people. When you recognize a wrong, you have to tell the people. We are not afraid to come out and tell the people we are sorry. We have been compromised. We have been mistreated. We have been compromised by several things, and we ask for forgiveness, and we come back on the right path and to start working really for the independence of our states and our emancipation. And I think it is possible. If we remain in this posture of fear, we will be cowardly and history will judge us. Our children will ask questions. Our grandchildren will ask questions. We are writing history. There is no place for cowardice. If our ancestors had been cowardly, we would not be here. Do you remember? I will give you an example of the people of Bamileke and Bassa. I want to talk about the Cameroonians, the union of the population of Cameroon, which since the 1950s has started a relentless fight against the Poles, but they have been massacred. The French colonial armies, in turn, have dispatched infantry battalions, tanks, helicopters, have annihilated anti-village. The most inhuman tortures have taken place during this period. You can do research on what they call the cart or the bakasima. Hundreds of thousands of people have been decimated in Africa because they dared to ask their settlers to leave their land. A civil war that lasted several years. That is to say that people dared to face the imperialists with their bare hands so that we could be here. There is no reason why we cannot face the imperialists so that our future generations can live. There are many examples throughout Africa of brave men who refused to be cowardly, who fought, who faced. Well, let us be worthy of these people. We are their descendants, and let us be worthy of them. A coward cannot be worthy. Let us not be cowards, young Africans, because a coward is always a traitor. And it goes hand in hand. They will try to frighten us so that we become cowards. And if we are cowards, we will betray. We must ban the treachery of our habits. Africans have been traitors so that the slave trade succeeds in Africa. It is because Africans have been traitors that colonization has been able to sustain in Africa. Let us question history. We will see. Lumumba, Patrice Lumumba, was betrayed because he dared to hold his head. And these same beautiful televisions came to the Congo for a few bids extended to individuals in the Congo for an interview to please their population. And you were able to follow that.
Il est mort, on est content.
Lumumba bothered us. He is dead. We are happy. It is treachery.
Beaucoup d'autres héros sont tombés. Pour que nous
Many other heroes have fallen so that we are here today.
technique de l'impérialisme, de faire peur aux autres.
And it is a technique of imperialism to frighten others by taking action to really create terror.
Je vous prendrai l'exemple.
It has not started today. I will give you the example of a warrior who fought, Victor Biakaboda.
Lisez, vous comprendrez. Il est issu d'une famille de chefs, pas de la chefferie.
Read it and you will understand.
Il est un enfant.
He came from a family of chiefs,
Il a fait ses études au Sénégal, je crois.
no chiefdom given by the colonizer. He was a worthy child. He studied in Senegal, I believe. He became a doctor in Guinea.
Pour mener le combat contre les impérialistes.
And when the RDA was created, he went to the Ivory Coast region to fight against imperialists, against invaders, against the colonizer.
Partout, les gens ont commencé à porter la voix.
He tried to organize the Ivorian society.
Qui a fait massacrer les populations.
Everywhere, people began to speak up. There was a general in his time, Pichu, who massacred the Ivorian population so that this spirit of freedom could never germinate.
Aux côtés de Félix Houphouët-Boigny.
He continued his fight alongside FEORCEC Lix Houphouët-Boigny. They fought, but the most violent was Victor Biakaboda. He represented a threat to the imperialists. What did he do?
En plus de massacrer les populations qui manifestaient,
In addition to massacring the people who demonstrated,
ils l'ont tué de manière atroce à côté de Boisflé.
one night they killed him in an atrocious way next to Boaflon.
Lorsque les populations de Dimbokro ont entendu l'assassinat, ils ont
A few hours later, when the people of Dimbakro heard the murder, they marched, they demonstrated.
L'histoire est têtue, les faits sont là.
They were massacred by the colonial army. History was killed. The facts are there. After his death, which scared FOC Lix Houphouët-Boigny, they called him and told him, if you continue the fight, you will meet the same fate.
Et il s'est rallié à l'impérialisme. Il a été nommé.
He was afraid and he joined imperialism. He was appointed minister in France and later he came to take the reins of the Ivorian Accord. They used him to eliminate many other people who dared to raise their voices.
Je pense que Thomas Sankara est un bel exemple.
I think Thomas Sankara is a good example.
Si vous avez peur,
If you are afraid, you will be cowardly and you will be a traitor.
n'ayez jamais peur.
Never be afraid.
La lutte.
The fight must continue.
Il y a beaucoup d'autres exemples à travers le
There are
monde.
many other examples around the world.
Il y a ce phénomène qu'ils ont aussi utilisé depuis.
And there is this phenomenon that they have also used for a long time and that they continue to use.
Certains individus, par exemple, se sont retrouvés dans d'autres pays.
You see, some individuals, for example, have found themselves in other countries
Au gouvernement du Mali. Vous avez entendu cette histoire
and created a so-called parallel government to the Malian government.
qui a existé dans le temps. Je vais vous prendre l'exemple.
You have heard this story. It is a technique that has existed for a long time.
Ce professeur de mathématiques qui a
I will give you the example of Ahmed Chalabi,
a été recruté
Iraq. This math teacher, who was even in the Iraqi government, was recaptured by the imperialists, and he formed this semblance of parallel government in Iraq,
et
in the
on l'a
United
utilisé
States.
pour être donc le mouton de sacrifice. Parce que c'est à lui
And he
qu'on
was
a dit,
used to be the sheep of
prononcer
sacrifice,
publiquement que Saddam Hussein développait des armes de destruction massive.
because it was to him that it was said that Saddam Hussein was developing weapons of mass destruction,
Et cet alibi
and
a
he
été
did it.
utilisé pour tuer des millions d'enfants en Irak et détruire l'Irak.
They used him. And this Talibi was used to kill millions of children in Iraq
Un soir,
and destroy Iraq.
après une interview, dans l'interview, il disait même que il sait que la
And do you know what was the fate of Chalabi?
quelques heures après, il a été retrouvé mort dans son lit, mort de.
One evening after an interview, he said that he knew that the CIA was on his back.
Si vous trahissez, vous aurez des fins macabres.
A few hours later, he was found dead in his bed, dead of a heart attack. If you betray, you will have macabre endings. That's how it is. Imperialism has no friends. Imperialism uses you.
Et quand il finit de vous utiliser,
And when it finishes using you, it does what it wants with you. Follow my gaze. You understand what I'm talking about. It has always been like this.
Le troisième vice,
The third vice that I invite you to leave is incompetence.
c'est l'incompétence. Ah, je reviens encore au mot du slameur qui a marché sur
Ah, I'm coming back to the word of the Islamist who walked on my tongue. Incompetence.
L'incompétence est un phénomène très dangereux.
You understand what I'm talking about. Incompetence is a very dangerous phenomenon that they use to destroy African society.
Reconnaissons-le. Les incompétents ont beaucoup
In our administrations, there is a lot of incompetence. Let's recognize it. Incompetents have a lot of space next to imperialism.
Les incompétents peuvent
Because
vous
incompetence can take over the development of a country. Incompetence can lead you to doubt yourself.
Les incompétents aiment tout pour eux seuls.
Incompetents love ease. Incompetents love everything for themselves. Incompetents don't like those who are competent.
Ceux qui cherchent. Les incompétents
They don't like those who innovate,
sont
those who
dangereux.
seek. Incompetents are
Lorsque
dangerous.
vous êtes éclairé, l'incompétent ne vous aime pas.
When you are enlightened,
Lorsque vous voulez
incompetents
innover,
don't like
l'incompétent
you.
ne vous aime pas.
When you want to innovate, incompetents don't like you.
L'incompétent sait reconnaître celui qui est compétent et il va le combattre
Incompetents only recognize those who are
parce
competent,
qu'il a peur
and they will fight him until his last breath,
Cherchez
because
la
he is afraid of
connaissance.
those who are competent.
Cherchez la
Seek
connaissance
knowledge.
et travaillez.
Seek knowledge and work.
Pour être
Work
compétent.
hard to be competent. Ban incompetence.
Parce que à travers les distractions
Because through distractions that we want to make us adopt,
adoptées, on devient incompétent.
we become incompetent.
Les réseaux sociaux sont les
I'll give you an example. Social networks are the places where information is published today.
s'informent à travers Internet et beaucoup de choses. Un jeune qui
People are informed through the
sur
internet.
les réseaux sociaux un article sur sa ferme
A young man who publishes an article on his farm or an agricultural project or a scientific project may not have 1,000 views.
il n'aura pas peut-être 1000 vues.
But a young man who publishes on futility has millions of views.
Ce que moi j'appelle du n'importe quoi.
As the young slammer said, we want to waste your time on futility.
Justement, comme disait
Be
le
aware.
slameur,
Let's
on peut
focus
faire
on
perdre
work
du temps
and
dans
seek
la
knowledge.
futilité.
Let's seek
Prenez
competence.
conscience. Intéressons-nous au travail.
It's good to be
Cherchons la
distracted,
connaissance.
but we must work first before being distracted. Seek knowledge, otherwise you'll waste your time doing nothing.
D'abord, avant de se distraire. Cherchez la connaissance, sinon vous perdrez du temps à ne rien faire. Et la jeunesse,
Youth is the time when you must use your time wisely.
il faut exploiter son temps à bon escient. Les impérialistes le savent.
The imperialists know this.
Ils vont multiplier tout ce qui est événement de distraction. Ils vont multiplier tout ce qui est
That's why they
événement
multiply all
de
events of distraction.
travail. Pour que vous soyez des incompétents.
They multiply all events that can distract you from work so that you become incompetent. When you fall asleep, you choose the incompetent to lead the important structures. You have no choice but to fold. Let's not be incompetent. Let's seek knowledge.
Les incompétents se cachent souvent derrière des mots.
Incompetents often hide behind words. They use the terms democracy and freedom without realizing what they mean.
Camarades, la démocratie est un état
Democracy is a state of mind as much as youth is a state of mind.
Ces soi-disant démocrates,
Whether you're a Democrat or not,
comment est-ce qu'on peut
how can you impose democracy by killing millions of people?
C'est de la dictature, ça, ce n'est pas de la démocratie. Ça ne
It's a
s'impose pas.
dictatorship, not democracy. You can't impose it.
Ceux-là qui se disent démocrates, mais regardez, nous
Those
avons
who
vu
call
des
themselves
scènes
Democrats
où on a
have seen
empêché des gens
scenes
de
where
rentrer dans
people
des
were prevented from joining
assemblées. On a vu des
assemblies.
scènes où des forces ont débarqué dans des assemblées pour obliger.
We've seen scenes where forces landed in assemblies to force deputies to take texts.
Plus terrible que ça,
We've seen more terrible scenes where people kill their demonstrators. But they call themselves Democrats, and we're called Persians. If that's democracy, I repeat, we don't want this democracy. And when you see incompetence, they don't seek to know what the real meaning of the word democracy is. They cling to the definition given to them by imperialism and start talking about democracy without really knowing the basics. That's incompetence. You have to know, look at the world to redefine democracy as we want it in Africa. Incompetence hides behind freedom. Remember, there is no individual freedom. It's a fact. Do you really think everyone is free? Freedom is collective. As long as we live in a society with rules, freedom is collective. Because if you don't respect the rules, you can't live in society. If you're free to speak as you please, the other is free to answer as he pleases. That would be disorder. If you're free to walk the streets and pass traffic lights as you please, the other is free to pass by and hit you. You understand that if individual freedom takes over, we are in a society of disorder. That's why there are rules in society. And everyone has to respect the rules. That's why we're talking about collective freedom. Some people have the right to speak about their individual freedom, but they don't care about others. I think that's also part of incompetence. Because they don't try to understand. They make up the rights given by the states to serve and do everything for themselves, neglecting the freedom of others. No, freedom is collective. Before we act, we think about the freedom of others, and we shouldn't transcend the freedom of others. So we need to have a reserve. And once we have a reserve, individual freedom doesn't exist. Freedom is collective, and we need to have this culture of collective freedom. So let's seek knowledge, let's read, let's interrogate history. Don't read the history they wrote in their favor. Seek knowledge through several sources, and you will understand in history who fought for Africa, how we must fight to continue this struggle of our ancestors. And I won't finish my words without making a statement about communication. Because, as I said, it's the fatal weapon of imperialism. And you young people, you must do everything to distinguish the true from the false. We will continue to dismantle the lies of imperialist media that always try to create problems in Africa. Because these media, through their mouths, can make you a king tomorrow. Through their mouths, they can make you leave your position as king and make you a poor slave tomorrow. Pay attention.
Welcome back. Now, this is the message to all Black Americans and warning to all these countries, all these white supremacists who they are trying to divide Africans or to divide Black people. You know, we all talk about unity of Black people. And when you talk about unity of Black people, we will not cease to talk about Black Americans. We will not cease to talk about Jamaicans. We will not cease to talk about Africans, simply because these are the true descendants, or these are the children of Africa. Black Americans, Afro-Caribbeans are the children of Africa. When you say the children of Africa, all these people came from African ancestors. Some were gone through slavery, slave trade. Some were gone through immigration and everything that happened. But all in all the black people come from one region, and that region is Africa. So Ibrahim Traoré knows what he's talking about. He's talking about the unity of black people, meaning that this is the unity of Africa. Okay? And they fear the unity of Africa simply because unity of Africa will make or will bend their agenda. Unity of black people will bend their interest in Africa. They are here in Africa every day exploiting our resources. They are here in Africa every day taking everything from us simply because they have dismantled our unity, simply because they have taken over our unity. That's what they have done. So, and they know very well, if black Americans, Afro-Caribbeans, and Africans at large, they know if we unite, if we come together, if we start speaking one language, that means that we will know our weakness, and we will try to figure out how we will cover our weakness, and we will try to figure out how we will fill the cracks between us. And once we fill these cracks between us, that means it's the end of their tenure here in Africa. That means it's the end of their, their rule here in Africa. So all in all, one thing for sure is that they will do everything to make sure that they are dividing us. They will do everything to make sure that black Americans and Afro-Caribbeans and Africans are divided. That's what they're trying to do. But Ibrahim Traoré has learned these tactics. Ibrahim Traoré has known the moves. And once he knows these moves, they want to eliminate him. They want him out of that seat because he is a threat to them. He's a threat to the white supremacy. They know it. And he is the only leader who is talking about the unity of black people, including black Americans and everyone. He's the only leader right now in Africa who is talking about the Pan-Africanist agenda. He's the only leader who is talking about coming together as black people. So, I want to say this. Being the only leader that is supporting the unity of Africa, that means that they will try in every way to eliminate his motive. They will try every way to remove him from that seat, and that's why we are seeing a lot of coup d'etats happening, or coup d'etats trial trying to against Ibrahim Traoré, And why do you think they want him out of that seat? It's because of the preachings he's preaching. Sometimes it's not because of the resources. It's because of what? The force. And the force is unity. Now, because when there is this disunity, that means they get resources easily. But when there is this unity between them, between black people, between black Americans, Afro-Caribbeans, and Africans, when there is this unity, that means that it's very hard to exploit Africa. When African countries unite, like Congo and Rwanda come together and unite, it's very hard to exploit Congo. But because of the disunity between Congo and Rwanda and maybe Burundi and Nigeria, it's very easy to come in between, talk to your neighbor and tell him, you know what, you want to invade this country. I want you to help us invade Congo. So people of Congo will continue suffering and crying simply because we are not united. Now, one day I was thinking that why there is no direct flight from African countries to Jamaica and to these Caribbean countries. And I thought it's because, yes, maybe it is there right now, but it has taken a lot of years to get direct flight from Africa to Jamaica. Another thing, why is it hard for black Americans and Jamaicans to send money to Africa? Why are they, to send money to their friends here in Africa, send money to their maybe family in Africa? One thing for sure is because they think the money is being sent here and it's going to build African strong, and so they are trying to stop that, I'm just thinking on my head, that thoughts on my head, because I had a friend one day in Jamdown and he was telling me it's very hard to send money here to there. So I don't know how to do it, you go to Western Union, maybe they tell you you have to wait. Who are you sending to? Maybe it's fraud, blah blah blah, a number of things. And they have this idea or this narrative to impose to African people that they are, you know, crimes and all those. But all in all, unity, unity, unity. And Ibrahim Traoré has sent a tough warning to them, to tell them that all those people who only serve the master, all those people who think of serving the master and don't think about us, don't think about his own people, all of them are in a bigger threat. Because once Africa is being united, once black Americans unite with Africans, once all black people unite, it's the first step to make Africa great. And we are going to make Africa great in terms of unity. That's what I said before. First step is to unite. After uniting, everything will follow on order. Tell me what you think on the comment section about this video. Until next episode, I say peace be with you.